What's up, guys? Tim Little, Matt Allen. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin, and welcome back to video number 6.
Is it 6? My goodness, they're flying.
I think it's 6 in the Spring Buyer's Guide series. Today, we're talking best bang for the buck rods, best bang for the buck reels, best bang for the buck combos. Should be a good one. Here we go.
Alright guys, this is the video that Tim and I have been waiting for. This is the one where the gloves come off. Price point goes away. Budget, high end, it's all in play here. We are talking bang for the buck regardless of price. It could be the best $100 rod. It could be the best $1,000 rod. Gloves are off. We're talking about all sorts of things. So what we've got here, these first 6, these are bang for the buck lines of rods. For the guy who wants to delve into a line of rods, these are all at different price points, and these are incredible lines. A guy could fill his entire boat deck with one line and go and be set for life. Here, we've got 3 casting reels, 2 spinning reels that are phenomenal bang for the buck, and they're all over the price points. As we get into this section, we're talking bang for the buck specific models. Again, we're talking springtime bass fishing. So Tim and I put our heads together and we picked out key models that one or the other or both of us rely heavily on in our spring fishing. And we'll walk you through why we chose each one of these. We've got 3 spinning combos, rod and reel combo, that are amazing at their prices. And then a couple of Swimbait combos to wrap it up. We debated doing BFS 2, keeping you guys here until it was dark. But seeing as how we already did a dedicated bait finesse video, we decided to let those go. If you missed that video, you need to go back and check that one out, because this series started with baits. We talked budget, we talked hard baits, then we got into some of the hottest things going right now. Strolling, bait finesse, then we got budget rods and reels. Here we are, we're working our way to tomorrow's high-end combos. Let's do this.
Take a breath. That was a lot. Guys, this is the fun part. I mean, it's all fun, but this is the stuff that we're getting into where we actually use on a daily basis, regular basis.
Is the passion.
You're looking at these, you're looking at these the reel seats and stuff. There's grass in them and dirt, and these are the rods that we literally pulled reels off to make this video. Yeah, so starting off with the lines of rods. You know, as you get farther along in your fishing career or experience, a lot of guys like to grow their arsenal, and they like to be matchy-matchy. You know, they like to have rods that they use for specific techniques. They know that they use this model for this and that model for that. So lines of rods, and companies have come a long way in developing full lines of rods. Yeah. Right? Before it was like you got to use this brand for this thing and this brand for that technique, and now it's not that way anymore.
And you still can do that. Absolutely. Right? And we do that a lot because we're always checking everything. Yeah, we want to be fair and get to know all the lines. So we do a ton of that. And some of you do too, right? We have a favorite model and you grab that one and add it to your lineup. But some of you, we know, want that committed. Just tell me one line that will do it all at my price point and I'm done. And that's exactly what we're doing right now.
All right, to kick it off, we're starting off with the Daiwa Tatula series. This is a phenomenal series. Now, like I said, we're getting into that higher price point. You're getting into the more sensitive blanks. You're getting into the nicer corks, nicer reel seats, nicer guide sets. There's a lot to be said. We're spending a little bit more money getting into these nicer price points. But that Tatula line, it's a very expansive line. You can get a lot of technique-specific rods like we're going to talk about in all these lines. But this rod feels really, really good in the hand. Like I said, high quality cork, good reel seat. The blanks, this is actually a 7-1 heavy. There's a lot of different models for you. But if you're a guy that likes to be Daiwa, this is an awesome line to have all of your Daiwa matchy-matchy reels and rods in that series. The Daiwa Tatula with the Tatula reels is a really cool combination.
In yesterday's video, that was our high end, right?
Of
that
the
was
budget, yes.
That was the top of the budget. So you're still in that budget-esque
type
realm in an amazing line.
Exactly.
Next one up, Shimano Zodius. The Zodius series is phenomenal. It was amazing 5 years ago, and it has continued to grow. They've made updates to it.
Right.
They went to carbon monocoque handles on them, which took sensitivity through the roof. And then every year, it seems like Shimano trickles more models into the Zodius line. We're going to get to a Swimbait rod towards the end that's incredible. That's in the Zodius line. This rod that's in my hand didn't exist a year and a half ago. This is that 7.4 extra heavy. We're not talking specific models, but I mean, we're talking rods that can do it all. One thing in particular about that Zodius line in Shimano is there's a bunch of models here that aren't even in the other Shimano lines. There's core Shimano models that are in everything, right? That 610 medium, you can get it in every rod. But there are models in Zodius that you can only get in Zodius. Some of those 7.5s with the longer handles on them that are incredible. So much power in those rods, and you have to go Zodius to get those. But you can go full line Zodius, never look back. Because there were a couple of little things missing a year or two ago, and they're all there now.
Yeah, they even added like travel rods in that line.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty vast line. All right, let's talk about this guy right here.
Here we go.
Here we go. All right, the X Pride. You guys have heard us rave about this line of rods for several years now. I mean, you want to talk
for a lot of years.
You want to talk about a line of rods that should be at a much higher price point. I mean, this line of rods fishes with the big boys, but it doesn't cost as much as the big boys. Very sensitive, very light, some awesome actions. I mean, some of our favorites are the 711, I mean the 7.3 extra heavy for frogging. I mean 610 medium. We can go on and on and on.
And we're going to. Oh, it's coming.
Yeah, we have a handful for you. But the X Pride line, you know, we've turned on so many anglers to that X Pride line, and we get the comments back, man, I can't believe that how light they are, how sensitive they are.
Yep.
This has to be, in my mind, this kind of sets the staple for a line of rods that doesn't break the bank, but they're just ultra high quality, very sensitive, light, strong. I've never broken one, knock on wood. I've broken a Zodius that was my fault. I high stuck it on camera. Remember that?
Somebody broke one, not you. Somebody broke one for me. That's the only X Pride I've ever had broken in all these years.
It's crazy how durable these things are. You know, again, monocoque handle, ultra sensitive, very light. It's just a step up from that Zodius line, and couldn't be more happier with that X Pride line.
But the amazing thing about the X Pride line too is that we've been saying that they shoot way out of their league for so long that this is the third generation of them that we've been saying it about. It's incredible. These X Pride Bs are just, the monocoque handle took it to a whole other level. Like they legitimately, in terms of how light they are, how sensitive they are, they should be $150 to $200 more than they are to be equal to most of what's on the market. It's crazy.
And then you get into those ultra powerful rod, like I said, the
711 extra heavy.
I mean, that's what we're punching with. I mean, on Clear Lake, we're dragging those big fish out of the stuff. You know, that 7.4 extra heavy or 7.3 extra heavy, that frog rod. I can't tell you how many giants I mean, they're just workhorses, but you also get that sensitivity.
They're feather light. All right, moving on to the next one. From St. Croix. St. Croix is famous for full lines of rods. It doesn't seem like they launch a line of rods without launching 25 models, minimum, right? It's incredible how thorough those guys are. If I was going to gamble on one line of rods, we put our heads together, because you're looking at multiple lines and you're like, which one, right? Like, the bang for the buck is phenomenal at Mojo. The bang for the buck is phenomenal at Victory. But Legend Tournament is where you get into those Legend blanks. It's different blank materials, same actions, super high-end components. Legend Tournament, there's a significant change that happened. So that's the one that we settled on. Legend Tournament, same deal. There are amazing models in there. But a guy could spend an entire fishing lifetime in that one line of rods. We're talking everything from dialed lipless rods to power rods to micro hair jig rods, you name it. It's really incredible what they've done there. They're just fantastic rods and a very, very impressive lineup.
Yeah, I mean that lineup is vast as well. I mean like ultra long hair jig rods and all of it, swimbait rods. All right, for me, next one up, the IMX Pro series. You want to talk about, I don't know that it gets bigger than the IMX Pro series as far as models in a line. I mean, you're talking
IMX Pro. So in the video description, we're going to link all of these for you. The first few links will be these 6 lines of rods. I don't know how we're even going to link IMX Pro because it's so large that they have like the crankbait rods, the
swimbait rods,
dude. On it, and we're not going to link them all. We'll probably just pick like the JWRs or something like that and just link one for you to get you started, and then you can explore the IMX Pros from there. But it's massive.
Yeah, I mean, you got technique-specific stuff all over the place, right? You got finesse swim baits, you got bottom contact Ned rig baits, you got drop shot baits, you got chatterbait rods, you got lipless crankbait rod. I mean, it goes on and on and on. But what you get with this line, you get that G Loomis feel. You get that ultra-sensitive, high-end rod, very light. You know, we are towards the higher price point of what we're talking about, but you get that ultra dialed rod, right? So if you want the finesse swimbait rod, or you want the frog rod, or our favorite lipless rod, or our favorite deep crank rod, or our favorite swimbait rod, it's all in those line. It's all in this line, and it's all available in that IMX Pro line. It's just a super vast line. Again, ultra high quality, good cork, nice blank. The actions are dialed. You know, the technique specific line is that IMX Pro. It is just so many different technique specific rods are in that line. I couldn't even tell you how many rods are in that line of rod. That's a lot.
It's a lot. All right, last but not least for this portion of the video is this guy right here. From Megabass, this is their middle line in their price points. This is the Orochi XX series, and the biggest thing that I could say here is what brought me into Orochi XX was the bottom contact rods. What I mean by that is like IMX Pro, some of our favorite swimbait rods, crankbait rods, bladed jig rod, right?
Yeah.
A lot of moving baits. Now, there are some bottom contact rods there that we love too, but the majority of it's moving baits. What brought me into IMX Pro was, thank you very much. What brought me into Orochi XX was bottom contact. The Brailleist was that first one that I fell in love with, and we're going to get to that stuff, right? But as I got into it, and I mean fell in love with some of these models, then I started expanding, and you start finding moving bait rods in there too, rods for different things, and quickly realized that yet again, you've got a line of rods from Megabass that is just across the board, and it's not even the highest end rods, and they're just incredible. A guy could go right into that line and just do it all
and be done there. I mean,
the
fit and finish there is top notch. You're talking about a Japanese company. I mean, it's the reels, everything is just top notch, and those actions are killer. All right, you want to jump into reels?
Yeah, let's do reels.
All right, so we just talked about this reel yesterday in that kind of budget I guess budget combo video, but this is the Daiwa Fuego. That's the CT100. Again, it doesn't break the bank, but it's a bang for the buck reel. It's not super expensive. It's a 100 size reel. It's super smooth, but you're already getting an external adjustment, right? An external braking system, which you don't get with a lot of those lower price point reels. But we've been throwing this reel now for a couple years. It's bomb proof. Like I said, super smooth. You can cast light baits a long ways.
Dude, the light bait thing is what amazed me. That was the standout with that for me. It was square billing on a windy day, and if you do that, you know that can be rough.
Right.
And I was able to dial that reel in, and I was shocked at that castability and how consistent it was.
Yeah, that Daiwa Fuego, that is a winner, and it doesn't break the bank, and that's why it made today's video.
All right, moving up in price point, the next one is going to be from Shimano, the SLX 70 MGL.
You didn't grab it?
And I grabbed the wrong one. Yeah, so in the buyer's guides in the fall, we raved about this reel. This one. Since then,
that reel's sweet, but
the new version came out,
yeah,
which is even more insane. We've already done a review of that reel, and I guess you have to make one mistake in a buyer's guide series, right? I just literally grabbed the wrong
lot to grab.
SLX 70. But the new SLX 70 MGL is even a step above this one. And the thing about that reel is it does not break the bank. The castability, and when I say castability, I mean distance. The distance that you can get out of Shimano MGL spools in general is remarkable. Last fall, we discovered specifically that SLX 70 MGL. We were getting distances that were mind-boggling. Throwing liplesses on a flat. And so you guys might remember the video where this happened, but we were on a flat and we couldn't get the boat any shallower. We were bottoming out. And you could throw that lipless so far, like almost to the bottom of the spool. It was 40-pound braid. And it was going like out of sight out there and catching fish that you could not reach any other way. It was incredible. Those SLX or those MGL spools, regardless of which line they're in, amazing. But that SLX 70 MGL is the lowest price point we were going to experience MGL, and it is an amazing bang for the buck reel. And I will link the most recent version, even though I held the wrong one.
Yeah, 100%. The MGL stuff, like that 70, that feels so good in the hand. It's quite a bit smaller. So I'm holding a 150 size reel. The 70 just feels so good in the hand. I love throwing a 70 size reel. It's just, and like you said, that I remember that video, and I was throwing a higher end reel, and he was outcasting me with that. So I won't forget that. But next reel up, the 150 Corrado 150 MGL, and what Matt just talked about, that MGL spool allows for just better castability, right? Better casting distance. It's buttery smooth. I'm not going to beat that horse because he just did a whole speech on the MGL. But if you can buy any reel in the Shimano series line of reels with an MGL spool, you're doing yourself a favor. They are awesome. And again, a 150 size, so it's not a true 200 size. This is a great all-around workhorse if you're throwing spinner. But, you know, a lot of techniques you can do with it. A lot of techniques, you don't necessarily need a 200 sized reel. So that new 150 MGL is a killer reel. Again, anything MGL is going to add distance to your castability, your casting distance, and it's just ultra smooth.
And the price on that reel is phenomenal as well. All right, spinning reels. When we took a look at spinning, we put our heads together. Again, we're thinking bang for the buck, right? Where do you see that giant leap? Because they're all over the place. At all the price points, you're like, that's bang for the buck. That's bang for that brand, that brand. We were looking for that biggest leap to where you're spending. What I had in my mind was, where are you spending the least for a truly high-end reel that lasts? And I arrived at Shimano Vanford. That Vanford series is in the finesse half of the Shimano family. So it is a lightweight finesse style spinning reel. They are unbelievably light. At their price, they are unbelievably smooth. When we target giant smallmouth, giant spotted bass, a lot of times we're using ridiculously high-end tackle because we know we're fishing for the fish of a lifetime. I went on one of those trips where I didn't know that's what we were going to end up doing, and I had mid-priced gear with Vanfords on them. I was blown away how well it went. I mean, giant smallies, 5+ pound smallies, just bulldogging on light line, and that Vanford drag, smooth as butter, no issues. That was several years back, and the Vanford has just continued to notch its way up in my mind, right? Just higher end and higher end and higher end. And I'm still thrashing the very first Vanford that I ever bought, and it's just smooth as can be. And to be in the finesse line and to have that kind of durability is awesome.
Yeah, just kind of transitioning over from that old CI4 Plus, right? It was just a smooth transition. It's an awesome reel. It's a workhorse of a reel, even though it is in that finesse line. I too agree with that Vanford. All right, guys. Next up for me is going to be the Shimano Sustain. Now, again, in that line of reels, it's in that finesse side on those Shimano reels.
Yeah, it's the next step up from Vanford.
Exactly. And looking at this and looking at these rods and these reels, when Matt and I are trying to plan out these videos, it's like, you know, I'm sure you do too, but I have conversations all the time. Buddies will call me, I'll get messages or conversations at a boat launch or whatever. Hey, I have this much money. Should I go high end here? Should I go high end there? Should I go to middle of the line? Like, how should I build my arsenal? And we tell people all the time, like, don't go out of your budget. Buy what you can afford. Budget. Now, do I love the Shimano Xsense? Absolutely. It's a $600 reel. You can get two of these for the price of one, right?
Right.
If you're a guy that needs to get multiple spinning reels, you want something that you're going to be blown away by, super light, buttery smooth, but you're not spending $600 for one reel. You can get two. The Sustain is where it's at. Yes, I love the Xsense. It's a little bit lighter. It's smooth. It's on my ultra high-end gear, but it's not what I use every day or what I would recommend every day for someone who's on a lower budget. And that's kind of where we get to this stuff, right? So that Sustain, this thing is phenomenal. And like I said, super smooth. It's lightweight, awesome drag, but you can't go wrong with either. Yes, there's a little bit of difference. There's a little bit of light, weight difference, but they're awesome, awesome. All these reels are awesome. And so when I have this conversation with people, it's like, buy what you can afford. Two is always better than one, right? Unless you're only going to buy one ever and be set, then that's where we'll go there. And we'll talk about that tomorrow. But for today.
Oh, it's coming.
Yeah.
One thing where I've seen this stand out, even in my own fishing, because I have a handful of these spooled up right now in my boat. A lot of people, just like Tim just said, like, I want to experience high end. What do I get? And those guys will come and they're like, should I buy this $700 rod? Should I buy that $1,000 rod? And you're like, well, where's your budget? And they're like, man, it's not in my budget. I just want to know, should I do it?
Right.
And right there, both Tim and I, we work very hard to be as insane as we are. I was about to call us responsible, and I'm just going to say first, we are insane. We buy a lot of tackle. We have a problem. We try to be responsible with your money for you. We do try to be responsible. So when I get a guy who's like, I can't afford it, but we end it right there. No, let's back up to you can't afford it. So let's talk about what you can afford. If a dude wants to experience it, but you don't have the $1,000 to throw at it, you can buy an X-Pride spinning rod and put a Sustain on it.
That's high end.
That is high end. You are about to have your mind blown, and you just did the combo for what an Xsense would have cost you.
Right.
You did the combo for less than a Stella would have cost you. No rod, just a reel. And it is insanely high end. It will blow your mind. And I personally use that exact combo a lot. Like I stroll with an X-Pride a lot, and it might have an Ultegra on it, it might have a Vanford on it, it might have a Sustain on it, depending on exactly what I'm doing or which fishing trip I'm on. But those reels paired up to those X-Prides, it's mind-boggling.
All right, now we're going to jump into some actual, like, specific models in some of these brands that we talked about. Go ahead and kick it off.
All right, since we kind of paired them up by family, because that will be easier in the video description, but these are in random order. When we get in the video description, we'll list them in the exact order we talked about them. So, from Megabass, you've got the P5 Destroyers. These are high-end rods. We're talking spring bass fishing here. Two models that jumped out at us when we're looking for specific models that just stand out from the crowd at their prices. The first one, the Megabass P5 Tequila Baccarat. The Tequila Baccarat is a powerhouse. It is the most strangely rated rod of all time. Okay, it's a 7-foot rod. I'm going to read you the specs. 7 foot, 3/4 to 4 ounce, 12 to 30 pound line. How are you even supposed to interpret that, right? 3/4, okay, so it's a jig rod. 4 ounce, oh, so it's my giant swimbait rod. Okay, here's the deal. They were on a mission to build a rod, tequila baccarat, lake baccarat, Mexico, giant fish. Guys that go down there typically aren't carrying 15 rods. You want to take a rod to a place where you're going to tangle with big ones and you need to be able to do a bunch of things. Tequila baccarat's incredible. You can throw a jig on this. You can throw a big worm on it. It's a 7 foot rod and you can legitimately big bait on it. You can throw the mag draft on it. Here's probably the most shocking one. I don't even know how I stumbled on it because it's so off base. This has become my Magnum flutter spoon rod. It's 7 foot long and it's my favorite rod to flutter spoon with. I love it. When I stick those fish, it's over. They are coming in the boat, period. Just an amazing rod with so many applications that apply in springtime. The other one, the X-Bites. Within the Destroyer line of rods, that X-Bites, the sensitivity is off the chart. Some rods are designed to give, to flex for a crankbait. Some rods are designed to have the perfect application for this or for that. The X-Bites is a bottom contact rod. What I mean, you're worming, you're jigging, you're shaky head fishing. Things where you are contacting bottom, slow fishing. You want to feel when you're on gravel and you bump into a twig. You want to feel when you're on sand and you arrive at gravel. Sensitivity through the roof. That rod is rated, it's a 7.2, 1/4 to 1 ounce, 10 to 25. You can literally throw a shaky head, a small jig, a medium-sized jig, some of your worms, all on the same rod. And again, even within the P5 line of rods, that X-Bites, the sensitivity is a standout even among its own peers. And that's what we're looking for today. Those rods from any line that are a true standout even amongst their own.
Yeah, that entire P line, or P5 line is phenomenal. We're going to talk about some of the more models in that line in tomorrow's high-end video. But all right, let's talk about some X-Prides real quickly. I mean, Matt likes to be long-winded. We'll see how this goes. But yeah.
I'm trying to stay. You just do the X-Prides. So we're not here till tomorrow.
Okay. So the X-Prides, you guys, we've raved about them for years. Specifically, you know, there's been specific models throughout the years that we absolutely love. We mentioned them earlier in this video. 7.3 extra heavy, 7. There's a bunch of them. But for spring bass fishing, that's what we really tried to focus on.
Yep.
We went with the 610 medium. No surprise there, right? You guys, this rod's been sold out many times. It's super hard to get. It's back in stock now. It's an awesome jerkbait rod. It is the jerkbait rod. We love throwing jerkbaits on it. But it's also super universal. You can blade bait on it. You can throw shaky heads on it. You can throw jigs on it. You can throw
water on it. There's so many things you can do.
That 6'10", it's not super long, so you can throw, like you said, top waters on it. You can throw blade baits or power shot. I mean, it's just a super universal rod, but it's that rod that's up there, and it feels like it should be in that higher price point. Like I said earlier, that is a must-have. If you haven't got a 610 medium in any of the Shimano lines, you should definitely check them out. But this one is a staple. Next up, again, spring bass fishing. This one was new to the line, I think last year, maybe 2 years ago.
Two
couple years ago.
I don't know. It's all blending together.
Yeah. The 7.7 heavy. So 7 foot 7 inch heavy. This is my A-rig rod.
Yep.
This
agreed.
is my flex rig rod. This is our 5-inch burrito swimbait rod.
All day long.
This is when we go down to Texas and we're throwing big worms, big Texas rigs, big Carolina rigs. This is a workhorse. Having that 7.7 heavy, good backbone, soft tip to fish those worms, But
and more moderate than you would expect. You
Right.
can load it on a big jig. You can load it on the burrito, or you're trying to throw that flex rig all day. You just load it up and lob it.
Right. He said I was going to do the X Prize, but
I
he
lied.
in there
I tried.
That 7.7, especially springtime. I mean, you can throw like glides on it. It's a workhorse of a rod, especially springtime when you're throwing those moving baits. And then last but not least, I'm super glad that this one, we finally get to talk about this one, because you and I were talking about this one earlier. This is probably the most overlooked or underrated rod in their entire line.
All of Shimano.
This is the X Pride 7.2 medium light. This thing, it's a workhorse. It's a medium light, but this is what I use for all of my personal, it's what I use for all my BFS swim baits on, my finesse swim baits. When I'm sticking those 5, 6, 7 pound smallmouth on ultra small finesse swim baits on BFS, this is the rod I'm throwing. However, it works phenomenally well for light flipping, for blade baits, for top waters. It is...
You know I'm going to jump in. You know it's
Go for
coming.
it. Yep, go for it.
That Tim hit that 610 medium on the head. He was like, that is the jerkbait rod, but it can also do all these things. This one is Tim's dedicated finesse swim bait rod. It is literally my dedicated blade bait rod. It is my dedicated tailspin rod. We've been in a pinch where it's an amazing topwater rod. It's turned out to be a good chatterbait rod if you're in a pinch. It does well with a spinnerbait. I've even gotten into a spot where I needed to throw a finesse jig on it, and it cracked every single one of them. Hands down, most underrated rod Shimano has ever made.
And super universal. Like, even though it's a medium light rating, it gets into that backbone fairly quickly, and it's got some horsepower. Yeah. So that guy right there, that if you're looking to get into the X Pride line and you already own that 610 medium, that 7.2 medium light is, I believe, a must-have.
Well done. That was awesome. He did it justice. That rod is so sweet. All right. Megabass Levante series. This is Megabass's lowest price point rod series. Within that lineup, there are a couple of gems, but we can't talk about all of them. We narrowed it down to one. That one is the Flat Side Special. The Flat Side Special is an incredible square bill rod. You can do other things with it, but if we're talking about somebody's like, hey, forget price, just tell me, what do you like throwing a square bill on? It's instant response. Flat Side Special. That rod gets them. You can get it in multiple lines. We'll talk more about it again tomorrow probably. But, I mean, that's just the way it is, right? But in that Levante series, it's amazing. I had this thing on deck the entire spring last year. The whole spring. It was on my deck every single day because we love square billing. We always have square bills tied on, and it's just an incredible all-around square bill rod regardless of price.
Is that all you got?
I'm stopping right there. I really tried to narrow it down in that lineup.
All right, guys, next one up for me. I have two different models in the Croy Legend Tournament line. This is one of my favorite lines from Croy. We talked about it, I think, in yesterday's video.
And we talked about it
earlier. The 7.4 Heavy. I think you and I would agree that's probably both of our favorite action in all of St. Croix's lines of rods.
It's definitely that one that just stands out in your mind.
It's Croix's actions are typically a little bit softer than most, or than the rating, and it's a super universal rod. So even though it's a heavy rod, I just got back from a trip from Florida, and I was throwing swim jigs on it. I was throwing flashy swimmers with swammers on it. You could throw a lot of things on a jig rod. This is a ultra universal rod. It's got a nice tip on it, but then again, you got that backbone to it. Even though it's a little bit softer action, it just makes it easy to use. And if you're looking to get a rod that you can do a lot of things on but feel like you're actually fishing with high quality, this is a must-have as well. And then one of my other favorites in that line, you want to say something about that?
Nope.
Okay.
I just wanted to play with it while I'm sitting here.
This is the Carbon Cranker. It's a 7.2 medium heavy. This is, you guys know that Matt and I are fanatical about lipless crankbait rods, right?
Good word choice. Yes.
Through the years, I mean, it's just one of those things you do on the West Coast. You have to find a good lipless crank rod. You got to find one that'll keep those 8 to 10 to 12 pounders pegged as they're tail walking. And so we're always trying lipless crankbait rods. We have some of our favorites. We have our favorites in the IMX Pro line.
Yep.
This is quickly becoming one of our favorites. Like I said, that carbon cranker, it's a fairly light rod. You can tell the size difference just holding these up. It's
the blank difference.
The lot slimmer rod, but it has the action that you need, right? It loads deep into that rod. It keeps those fish pegged, and you can throw lipless cranks on it. You can throw square bills on it. You can throw blade baits on it, a little bit heavier blade baits if you want. But that is an awesome lipless crankbait rod. And you guys know how much we throw lipless in the spring.
All right, Zodius. Grab 2 here for you. We just finished talking about Zodius. I talked about those longer handled Zodius rods that you can only get in that lineup. And they are the deal. There's so many techniques that we use them for. Specifically in the spring, the 7.5 medium heavy. Slightly longer handle, which lets you tuck it in. You've got a ton of power. I really like that for a lot of things. But where the standouts for me, in our line of A-rigs, we have the Flex, the Mini Flex, the Micro Flex. The Mini, the one in the middle, 7.5 medium heavy is the deal for that. That longer handle, it's so easy to load up and lob. Just let them sail. They fly on their own. It's easy on your body. You don't beat yourself up A-rigging. Very easy to fish with. They also double as excellent worm and jig rods. They do a great job for both of those things. I've also spent a lot of time throwing the S-Waver on this rod. I mean, it's just a great universal model. And then the other one, also medium heavy, but going smaller, the 610 medium heavy. So step up from the medium. 610 medium heavy started out as shaky head rod, but has just grown from there. When we travel, you know, you're limited to what you brought. You think you know what your pattern is. You bring half a dozen rods and you find out that you had that thing completely backwards and now you have to adapt. On one of those trips, as a result of have to adapting, I stuck an 11 pounder on a chatterbait on that rod and it did amazing. I never would have just picked it up and been like, chatterbait rod. But after that happened, I've used it a bunch in that application and I love it for it. It's great. Historically, one of my favorite rods to throw finesse jigs. It's also amazing for target casting spinnerbaits. So spinnerbait fishing where you're just chucking and winding, you can do that with 50 different rods. But close quarters, in the brush, flooded conditions, you're in the trees or around docks, you're trying to pick things apart, 610 medium heavy is a dream to fish with. Absolute standout in its line.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that shorter rod, that 6'10". When you're around docks or laydowns or you're making those target casts around cover, it's so much nicer doing that than with like a 7.5 or a 7'6" rod.
And your fishing changes over time, right? Like if us 10 years ago had heard you say that, we would have had an argument with ourselves. We're like, no, bro, 7.6 all the way. But you realize as you travel the country or you travel the globe and you fish more and more situations that a 7.5 footer or a 6'10", they're not perfect for everything. There are absolute key things where they just are mind-blowing, and there's other places where they're okay.
And just to clarify too, he talked about that 7.5 medium heavy for our middle, our mini A rig, where I talked about the 7.7 heavy X Pride for our full size flex rig. So that's kind of our 1-2 punch. All right. Next up for me is also a 7'5" rod. This is in the Orochi line. This is the Orochi XX. This is the brailless, and this should not come to a surprise to you guys. Matt's been raving about this rod for the last few years as a jig rod. However, it is a great jig rod, right? It's got more of a moderate action, right? It loads deeper into the blank, and we've talked about that for a long time with those big heavy jigs. Those fish come up, You don't want that weight out there flopping out of the fish's mouth. Having that slower taper keeps those fish pegged, right? More moderate action jig rod. But with that said, I like universal stuff. I like stuff that I can throw an underspin on, or a flashy swimmer, or, you know, whatever, right? And that 7.5 with this action, that braidless, it can be used for a lot of things. Even though it is an awesome, awesome bottom contact rod, springtime, you can use it for a lot of different things, and didn't want to do this video without including it.
Yeah, like Waver 168, 6-inch mag draft, like things you would not have thought you'd throw on a jig rod. They rock. All right, the last in this section of rods, G Loomis IMX Pro. One specific standout for you. That is the 906 CBR. That is a 7.5 foot crankbait rod. Now, there are hundreds of crankbait rods on the market. There might be a dozen in the IMX Pro line. Tons of them. But the 7.6, the 906 CBR is special because it shines in those mid cranks. The cranks we're throwing a lot in the springtime. You can square bill on it, although it is not the first choice for that. It's a little long for that. But where it shines is mid cranks up to your smaller deep divers. And by smaller deep divers, I mean our crank, the Tactical DD, the Deep X300, the Deep 6,
DT16.
DT16, a 5XD. It's a dream from there back to a rock crawler, right? Anywhere in that range, that rod is just such a standout. You hear people talk about cranking, and guys struggle. They lose a lot of fish. You see guys dropping to their knees, burying the rod, trying to keep those fish pegged, especially with lipless. Guys struggle with the lipless. It's the rod. Like when a guy loses a bunch of fish and then you hear him go, well, it's lipless fishing. We're like, no, bro, it's your rod. Once you find the right rods, it's incredible how well fish stay pegged. And that 906 to those mid-sized crankbaits is the deal.
All right, we're going to transition. I'm going to do, I'll hand you these. We'll just kind of break this down. Let you do the bait casters. I'll do the
buddy.
Got a couple more spinning combos for you guys. You know, again, springtime fishing for me, for Matt, usually it's moving baits, right? You're covering water, fish are moving up shallow, getting ready for that pre-spawn. You're looking for those fish that are staging, moving up. You're covering water, trying to find those active fish. But that doesn't mean that every day is going to line up and you're going to catch them how you want. So paired up, well, let's start with the rod. This is the, I'll give you the model. This is the Drop Shot Finesse XL. Again, this is another rod in that Legend tournament line. This is a 7'3" medium light. So this is a kind of a do-all rod, 7'3". So you can throw light shaky heads. You can throw light soft plastic stick baits, Senkos. A lot of times these fish are going to move up into that cover. You need to throw skip in, weightless Senko, something like that. You know, your lighter finesse techniques, this is a killer rod. And then paired that up, this is the Pro Scion by Daiwa. Again, you're getting up there in that higher price point, a little bit smoother drag, smoother handle turns, lighter weight. So if you're looking for an awesome spinning combo, this is a great one. I'm just gonna roll through these real quick.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. On the flip side, you guys heard me talk about a little bit shorter rods over here in the bait casters. That said, there is still a time and a place for a long spinning rod. This is the Zodius. This is the 7'6" medium spinning rod, okay? 7'6". So if you need, or you're fishing a technique where you need extra casting distance, where you need a longer rod to load up, maybe you're fishing big smallmouth that love to get airborne, you need that extra rod to kind of bend and soften those jumps, okay? That 7'6" is a staple in both of our arsenals, paired up with a Vanford. Again, matchy, that red and black, it looks great, feels great, and put some braid on that, put a leader on it, increase your castability. And when you do set those those light hooks on big fish, it's gonna keep them pegged, okay? Spy baits, hair jigs, that sort of stuff. And then last but not least, we've talked about, in this series, we've talked about strolling quite a few times. Matt and I would both agree that the 6/8 medium X Pride is the deal. Okay, strolling, it's one of those techniques that I prefer to do on a spinning rod and not a BFS setup, right? You're not shaking your arm, you're shaking your wrist, and as you're reeling, you're shaking that bait. Shaking a 6'8" rod versus a 7'6" rod makes all the difference in the world. So that X Pride, lighter, sensitive, shorter, 6'8", and then paired up with that Vanford, that is an awesome, awesome combo. And it could be used, I mean, yes, that's what we're using for strolling, but if you are in that situation, you're around laydowns and docks and all that stuff, but you want to be throwing a spinning rod, having that shorter rod makes it for easier casting to target specific locations.
That has also proven itself, again, while traveling, you use the gear you have. That has turned out to be my favorite rod for throwing our mini underspin too. You load those fish up, they're done. All right, I've got 2 swim bait rods for you, and with these, we will wrap this video up. Let's start with this one. This is, in that Shimano Zodius line, the 7.9 Extra Heavy. It's got an 8-inch mag draft on it. It's the only rod that's got a bait on it. The reason why that's on there, it was already tied on there, I left it on there. Here's why. That is literally my dedicated mag draft rod. That is the best rod I've ever found for throwing those big boot tail swim baits. There is so much horsepower in this rod, it's insane. I mean, you can cross their eyes at the end of a cast, but it also has some tip in it that will let you load up and send those baits without killing yourself. Pair it up to a Tranx 300. It is a dream combo. I'm a bigger boy, pretty tall, pretty wide, unfortunately. Slightly shorter handle is very easy for me to tuck. I do a lot of swim baiting in winter. I'm wearing a lot of gear. When you're 5 layers deep and you're trying to take a long-handled swim bait rod and get it around your gear, it's a nightmare. Slightly shorter handle, I can tuck this thing right in even when I'm layered up, and it's very comfortable. But truly an amazing soft bait rod, and hands down my favorite rod to throw that mag draft. And then the last one, if you don't mind, the last one from St. Croix in their Victory line. This is the SB Ranger. The SB Ranger 710 Heavy. I love this rod for treble hooks, glide baits, and specifically the wake bait. I love throwing our wake on it. I love throwing like the bait Sanity, their walking bait. I love throwing on that. I love glide baiting on this rod. The Chimera Shad is incredible on this rod, but that is always the rod that I throw our wake on. I love that rod for that application. It's the way that it loads. Any giant swim bait rod can throw a giant swim bait. They can all lob them out there. I can't tell you the reason why, but I can tell you that when I'm throwing our wake on this rod, because I like to fish edges with it, edges of grass, edges of docks, I am so accurate with this rod, it's noticeable. Like, I'm trying to pitch it up into holes in docks, and you're like, pucker time, right? You're like, please don't explode. And I can stick those casts every time with this rod, and over time, I'm like 100% confidence. I just start sending it, and I'm fishing with other people, and they're like, good Lord, I would not throw that in. And you're like, no, we're good. We're good. And it's not me. It's that rod. You give me a different swim bait rod, I'm blowing baits up. I'm smashing the sides of docks. I'm going to owe some dock owner because I'm going to hit his boat. It's a noticeable difference with that one. I've got it paired up to that Tatula 300. I spent the last year getting to know that reel. It's a great pairing, very comfortable, low profile. That is a killer setup.
Guys, there it is. I don't know how long this video is, but we got through some rods and some reels, didn't we?
We did.
A lot of lines of rods. Guys, this is where it gets fun. This is the stuff that we're using day in and day out. We're the most familiar with. We love passing this information on to you guys to help you guys save money. We know that it's springtime, right? It's warm out. It's time to get out on the water. And whether you're trying to rig your entire arsenal with one line or you want specific rods for specific techniques, we'll link all this stuff down below in the video description for you and help you make the right decision with your hard-earned money. Tomorrow, we're going to finish this series off with high-end gear. Basically, top 10 or top 12 combos for spring techniques that we use day in and day out. So we're really looking forward to that. But guys, as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for the support. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys tomorrow.